This is Ferdinand Marcos Jr., otherwise known as Bongbong. He is the son of the late dictator Ferdinand Marcos. Just 30 years ago, the Marcos family was exiled to Hawaii following a massive revolution in the country which saw an end to a 20-year Marcos reign. 30 years on, now Bongbong is gunning for the presidency and he has an actual shot of winning.
My certificate of candidacy for president.
To understand how this all happened, we must go back to the day the Marcos family lost all the power themselves. Back to February 1986.
Imelda Marcos,
right?
More than 1,200 pairs of shoes were left
The late
in
dictator
stores.
allegedly stole billions of pesos.
Imelda Marcos, 7 of her grab cases, she was found guilty.
Bongbong misrepresented his Oxford education in 2015.
The excesses and corruption of her husband's dictatorship.
It was February 1986 and then President Ferdinand Marcos' 20-year reign was about to reach its end. A fraudulent election, human rights and corruption accusations led hundreds of thousands of Filipinos to march on the streets in what is known as the People Power Revolution, a movement which went on to inspire anti-authoritarian activists throughout the world. The movement saw the Marcos family ousted to Hawaii. On their escape, they carried with them 413 pieces of jewelry, 24 gold bricks, and 27 million Philippine pesos in freshly printed notes, to name a few. The Philippine Supreme Court estimates that Marcos had accumulated up to $10 billion in ill-gotten wealth while in office. From 4 New York City skyscrapers, an 8.2-acre waterfront mansion in Long Island, a painting collection that featured works of greats like Monet and Picasso, over 50 mansions spread out over the Philippines, $683 million found in Swiss bank accounts held by the Marcos family, million-dollar properties in the United States and Texas, New Jersey, Hawaii, and California, a $10.3 million wedding for their daughter Irene, Imelda's 3 jewelry collections which reached up to $21 million, Imelda's crazy shopping sprees where she spent $4 million in 2 months in New York City. The USA even charged Marcos for diverting aid funds meant for the Filipino people to Swiss bank accounts and election funds. The list goes on and on. All this while in the Philippines, poverty was up almost 20%, the daily wages of skilled and unskilled workers plummeted, the price of basic goods increased 3 times, and international debt skyrocketed over 77 times. To this date, the PCGG has only recovered over $3 billion from the Marcos' ill-gotten wealth. The regime also saw over 100,000 human rights violations, with people unjustly arrested, tortured, and killed. Many thought this would be the end for the Marcos' political aspirations, but only 5 years after her exile in 1991, Imelda Marcos was allowed to return to the Philippines to face more than 60 criminal and civil charges. On her return, she was greeted by her supporters. Many were holding up signs that read, "Imelda, we love you." In 1992, just a year after her return, Imelda files her candidacy for the presidency, citing a sick and misdirected Aquino government. Marcos ended up being 5th in a 6-person race, losing to Fidel V. Ramos, a key figure in the People Power Revolution. The election wasn't a total loss though. Bongbong was able to secure a seat in Congress in the Ilocos Norte region, the hometown and stronghold of the Marcos family until today. Just a year later, and 4 years after Marcos' death in exile, then President Ramos allowed the dictator's body to be flown back to the Philippines. While his return was ignored by much of the country, Marcos was given a hero's welcome in his home province from thousands of Marcos loyalists. His body is enclosed in a glass vault and displayed at the Marcos Museum in their home in Ilocos Norte. Imelda told reporters that he would remain on display until the government yields to her demands for burial in the National Heroes Cemetery in Manila. 2 years later, in 1995, the Marcos family runs for the midterm elections. Imelda becomes congresswoman in a landslide victory in her home province of Leyte. The win was not surprising as her relatives hold a strong political influence there.
We are winning by landslide and...
During the dictatorship, the family's home province of Leyte and the Ilocos Norte were also treated better. Bongbong also attempts for the Senate but falls 4 places short of the magic 12. In 1998, Imelda ran once again for the presidency. Her announcement came after the Supreme Court upheld her corruption charges in 1993. However, 13 days before the election, Imelda withdrew her candidacy as she was low in the polls. Imelda says the move was to save the Filipino people from the ultimate injustice of a possible bloody election.
bloody election.
During the same election, her children Bongbong and Aimee once again secured their political stronghold in Ilocos Norte. 9 years later, in 2007, Bongbong reclaims his former seat, serving as the representative of Ilocos Norte as he completes the maximum of 3 terms as governor. During the 2010 election, Bongbong became senator,
Elected to the position of Senator of the
achieving the highest post won by the Marcos family since the People Power Revolution. He campaigns on a platform as a progressive politician with a strong track record in Ilocos Norte, while denying his parents ever committed crimes during the dictatorship. That message is well received by a young generation of voters with no experience of his father's authoritarian rule. The same election saw Aimee elected as governor and Imelda returning to politics at 80 years old as a congresswoman. In 2013, they were both re-elected to the same positions. In 2016, Bongbong ran for the vice presidency but loses to Leni Robredo by 263,000 votes. The campaign had its fair share of controversy as Bongbong falsely claimed that he had a degree from Oxford University.
Got my diploma in Oxford, di ako nagtapos sa Wharton because
This was later refuted by the university and said that he only obtained a special diploma, which by no means is a formal degree. After losing to Robredo, Bongbong files for a protest saying he was cheated. The Supreme Court unanimously dismisses the case after 5 years.
Has unanimously dismissed the election protest filed by defeated Vice President.
The election also saw Imelda and Aimee get re-elected to their posts in Ilocos Norte. A couple of months later, longtime family ally President Duterte allowed the late dictator's body to be buried in the National Heroes Cemetery, satisfying Imelda's 30-year demands. The body was buried without public knowledge, with Vice President Leni Robredo saying, "Like a thief in the night, the Marcos family deliberately hid the information of burying former President Marcos today from the Filipino people." The move reopens the wounds of many of the martial law victims and sparks protests around the country.
A dark day in Philippine history, succeeded in revising the history of the Philippines. But protesters say that this is not the end of the fight for justice.
If we bury the dictatorship within us, we are sending a signal that in the Philippines, crime pays.
In the 2019 midterm election, Aimee became the second Marcos to win a national position as senator.
Marcos as senator-elect in the May 9th.
Her campaign had its fair share of controversy too. She made 2 incorrect claims about her educational background. In her now taken down Facebook biography, she claimed that she was one of the first female graduates from an Ivy League school. She also claimed that she graduated cum laude from the UP College of Law. These claims have now been both disapproved by the University of the Philippines and Princeton. On September 2, 2020, the House approved Bill 7137, which declares September 11 as a non-working holiday in Ilocos Norte to honor the late dictator's birthday.
Bill 7137. Hearing no objections, are hereby all approved.
The bill was passed with 197 affirmative votes and only 9 negatives. Over the past 30 years, the Marcos family has been accused of historical revisionism, with recently Bongbong calling for the revise of history textbooks that paint a bad image of his family. In October 2021, Bongbong files for the
I
presidency.
filed my certificate of candidacy for president just now.
In a once more controversial campaign, Bongbong has decided to skip all major presidential debates.
Marcos Jr. skipping another presidential debate.
Not attend the presidential debate hosted by the Commission on Elections.
With the Commissioner of Elections even calling it a red flag.
To be a red flag for the voters, absolutely.
During the election campaign, it was brought to light that the Marcos family has not yet paid their estate tax, which has ballooned from 23 billion to 203 billion Philippine pesos.
203 billion pesos in unpaid estate taxes owed by Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and the rest of the Marcos family. Tax assessment was already ruled final and unappealable by the highest court in the Philippines.
Sir, nakabayad na po ba kayo sa estate tax?
Salamat po, salamat.
This would not be the first time the Marcoses would fail to pay their taxes. As in 1995, Bongbong was convicted for failure to file income tax returns from 1982 to 1985.
Has no record of his compliance of payment or satisfaction of judgment.
Despite all of this, Marcos continues to lead in surveys with 56% of the vote, with his old rival, current Vice President Leni Robredo, way behind at 24%, but has been steadily gaining. With the election just a month away, it does seem like it's Bongbong's game. The question remains, have the Filipinos forgotten, and is history doomed to repeat itself?